The great chamber of Apex Prime Station floated in the darkness of space like a crown of silver and glass. Inside, representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated sections, waiting for the session to begin. The air hummed with translation devices, turning thousands of different sounds into words everyone could understand. Tae-sung stood in the human section, his hands clasped behind his back. He wore a simple, dark suit, nothing fancy. Around him, the other species wore elaborate robes, armor, or nothing at all depending on their biology. Some floated in tanks of liquid. Others sat on heated stones. The diversity of the Galactic Council was its pride. But today, that pride would become something else entirely. The session began with the usual formalities. Reports on trade routes, discussions about mining rights in the outer sectors, small disputes between neighboring systems. Tae-sung had sat through hundreds of these sessions over the past 3 years. He knew the rhythm by now. The important votes always came last. Finally, Council Prime Velcor rose from his platform. The insectoid leader stood on 4 legs, his chitinous body gleaming under the chamber lights. His compound eyes reflected the room in thousands of tiny images. When he spoke, his mandibles clicked together, and the translator turned it into a smooth, cold voice. We now address Petition 773. The human request for full council representation. Tae-sung felt his heart beat faster, but his face remained calm. This was the moment humanity had been working toward. 3 years of diplomacy. 3 years of proving their worth. 3 years of patience. Velcor continued. The humans have been part of galactic civilization for 32 standard cycles. They have contributed to various projects and initiatives. However, the Council must consider whether they have truly earned a seat among us. A Nomak representative stood up. The crystalline being's body chimed softly as it moved. The humans are talented. Yes. Their engineers are skilled. Their doctors are competent. But are they ready for the responsibility of council membership? They are still so young, so inexperienced in galactic matters. Tae-sung wanted to speak, but protocol demanded he wait. This was the deliberation phase. He could only listen. A Kruvan general slammed his scaled fist on his seat. The humans are too soft. They avoid conflict. They prefer negotiation to strength. How can such a species guide galactic policy? One by one, the species spoke. Some praised human achievements. Others questioned human readiness. But Tae-sung noticed something troubling. Even those who spoke kindly about humans treated them like children. Promising children. Perhaps, but not equals. Finally, it was his turn to speak. Tae-sung walked to the central platform. He looked around at the assembled species. Some regarded him with curiosity, others with dismissal. A few seemed genuinely interested in what he would say. Honored Council, he began. Humanity does not ask for special treatment. We ask only for what every species here has earned through contribution. For 3 decades, humans have worked alongside you. We have built the quantum relay networks that connect your worlds. We have staffed your hospitals and research stations. We have coordinated trade routes and maintained infrastructure across 15 sectors. He paused, making sure his words were clear. We do not claim to be superior. We claim only to be partners. We have earned our place through work, not words. The chamber was silent for a moment. Then Velcor spoke again. The human ambassador speaks well. But words and deeds are different things. Let us vote. Also for port. Let us vote. The voting process was simple. Each species indicated approval, denial, or abstention. The lights on the great board began to change. Red for denial, green for approval, yellow for abstention. Tae-sung watched the board fill with colors. His chest felt tight. Red, red, yellow, red, green, red, red. The pattern became clear quickly. The vote was not close. When the final tally appeared, the result was absolute. 41 species voted against human membership. 3 voted in favor. 3 abstained. Velcor looked at Tae-sung with what might have been satisfaction. The council has spoken. The human petition is denied. But he was not finished. The council prime leaned forward on his platform. Perhaps in another few decades, when humanity has matured, we can revisit this discussion. For now, you should be satisfied with your current role. You are valuable to us, yes. Useful laborers. Skilled technicians. But the council requires more than skill. It requires wisdom that comes only with age. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Not cruel laughter exactly, but the kind of amusement adults show when a child asks to drive a vehicle. Condescending. Dismissive. Tae-sung stood very still. He felt anger rise in his chest, hot and sharp. But he had trained for this moment. He had prepared for every possibility. Even this one. He took a breath. Then another. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, but clear enough for every translator to catch. I see. The council has made its position clear. He looked around the chamber one last time. Memorizing faces. Memorizing species. Memorizing this moment. Then humanity respectfully withdraws from galactic affairs. Effective immediately. The laughter stopped. Confusion replaced it. Velcor's mandibles twitched. Ambassador, there is no need for such drama. Your petition was simply premature. You may continue your current work and reapply in the future. Tae-sung shook his head slowly. No. You have shown us what you truly think of humanity. You value our work but not our voice. You use our skills but deny our worth. We will not remain where we are not respected. A Nomak official chimed urgently. You cannot simply leave. There are contracts, agreements, responsibilities, all of which, Tae-sung said calmly, will be fulfilled to the letter. Every human will complete their current assignments and return home. We will break no agreements. We will violate no contracts. We will simply not renew them. He turned and walked toward the exit. Behind him, voices rose in concern, confusion, and disbelief. But Tae-sung did not look back. He had said everything that needed saying. The council thought humanity's withdrawal was an empty threat, a tantrum that would pass. They believed humans needed the galaxy more than the galaxy needed humans. They would learn differently. In 48 hours, the consequences would begin. But in that moment, as Tae-sung left the chamber, the council simply returned to its business. They had more important matters to discuss than hurt human feelings. That was their first mistake. It would not be their last. Hyun-woo stood in the control room of Relay Station 47, watching the data streams flow across his screens. The quantum relay network was beautiful in its complexity. Thousands of nodes connecting hundreds of worlds, information traveling faster than light itself through carefully tuned quantum channels. He had helped build this network. Spent 12 years of his life making sure every connection was perfect. Every relay station maintained. Every backup system ready. Now he was going to turn it all off. His communicator buzzed. The message was simple. Directive confirmed. Begin withdrawal protocol. Hyun-woo looked at his team. 6 other human engineers, all watching him. They knew what was coming. They had all received the same message. All right, everyone, he said quietly. You know what to do. Finish your current maintenance tasks. Document everything. Then we shut down and go home. A young engineer named Bora looked worried. What about the Velthar colonies in Sector 9? They depend on this relay for all their communications. They should have thought about that before they laughed at Ambassador Tae-sung, Hyun-woo replied. His voice was not angry, just tired. We tried to be partners. They made us servants. We are simply stopping our service. The team worked through the day. They completed every task on their schedule, fixed every minor problem, updated every log. Hyun-woo insisted on it. They would leave nothing undone, nothing broken by their hand. When the systems failed, it would be because no one else knew how to maintain them. That evening, Hyun-woo entered the shutdown sequence. The great quantum relay powered down section by section. The data stream stopped. The connections went dark. 47 relay stations across 15 sectors, all going silent within hours of each other. Other human teams were doing the same thing across the galaxy. 12,000 light-years away, Dr. Ji-won walked through the halls of Andromeda Medical Institute for the last time. She had been the head of surgery here for 8 years. The institute treated patients from 30 different species. Her techniques had saved thousands of lives. She stopped by the neural surgery ward. A Nomak patient named Nomtel was recovering from a procedure she had performed last week. The crystalline being's internal fractures were healing nicely. "Doctor," Nomtel chimed softly. "I heard rumors. Are you leaving?" Ji-won nodded. "All human medical staff are returning to Earth. But why?" "Your work here is so important." "It was important," Ji-won corrected gently. "But the council decided humans are not important enough to have a voice. So, we will use our skills for our own people." Instead, she moved through the hospital, saying quiet goodbyes. In the emergency room, 3 human doctors were stabilizing a crewman who had been injured in an industrial accident. They would finish treating him. They would make sure he was safe. Then they would leave. Ji-won found the hospital administrator, a Velthar named Velkesh. The insectoid was agitated, his antennae twitching rapidly. "Dr. Ji-won, this is unacceptable. We have patients scheduled for surgery next month. Complex procedures that only your team can perform. Then I suggest you cancel those surgeries," Ji-won said calmly. "Or find other doctors. We have submitted our resignations. We will stay for 2 more weeks to help transition our patients. After that, you are on your own. But your techniques, your methods, they are revolutionary. We need them." Ji-won smiled sadly. "You need them. But you do not need us, apparently. The council was very clear about our value. We are useful workers, not worthy partners. So we will take our usefulness home." Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. Human engineers left their posts. Human scientists packed their research. Human administrators closed their offices. Captain Dong-min stood on the observation deck of Nexus Station, the largest commercial spaceport in the galaxy. Below him, the docking bays stretched in every direction. Thousands of ships arriving and departing every day. Cargo from 100 worlds flowing through this one point. He managed it all. Well, he and the 43 other human logistics coordinators stationed here. They planned the routes, managed the schedules, coordinated the cargo transfers, solved the problems that arose every hour of every day. The station's Crewven commander, Crewven, came to see him. "You cannot leave. I forbid it." Dong-min raised an eyebrow. "You forbid it?" "Commander, we are not your slaves. We are contractors, and our contracts are complete. We are simply choosing not to renew them, but the station will collapse without you." "Who will manage the traffic?" "That is not my problem anymore," Dong-min said. "You have your own staff. They can learn. My staff does not have your experience. They do not know your systems. Then they will figure it out, or they will not. Either way, it is your responsibility now, not mine." Crewven's scales flushed with anger. "This is sabotage. This is an attack on galactic commerce." Dong-min's expression hardened. "No, sabotage would be destroying your systems. Attack would be violence. We are doing neither. We are simply leaving. There is a difference." He walked past the commander toward the human quarters. His team was already packing. They would leave everything in order. All the manuals, all the protocols, all the system access codes. Whether anyone could understand or use them was another question. Within a week, the effects became visible. Communication delays appeared across the galaxy. Ships waited hours for docking clearance that used to take minutes. Medical facilities postponed complex procedures. The Council sent messages to Earth. Polite at first, requesting explanation, asking for dialogue. Taesung did not respond to any of them. A Velthar trade minister named Velkana watched her merchant fleet drift in space, unable to navigate without the relay network. She sent urgent messages to her captains, but half of them never arrived. The quantum relays that used to carry her communications instantly now sat dark and silent. A Nomak administrator named Nomrel discovered that his entire department was in chaos. The human translators and mediators who had quietly prevented conflicts between Nomak factions were gone. Disputes that had been minor annoyances became major problems. His carefully organized bureaucracy began to fracture. A Kruvan general named Kruvax prepared his fleet for a border patrol, only to discover that his supply ships had not arrived. They were stuck at Nexus Station, waiting for docking clearance that might come in hours or days. His warships had fuel for one more patrol. After that, they would be stranded. On Earth, Taesung met with President Min Seo and Defense Minister Jae Hyun. They reviewed the reports coming in from across the galaxy. The withdrawal was proceeding exactly as planned. The Council is starting to notice, Min Seo said. Taesung nodded. They will notice more in the coming weeks. Right now, they still think this is temporary. They believe we will come back once we calm down. Will they try to force us? Jae-hyun asked. Perhaps. That is why we are accelerating the defensive preparations. Let them try. They will learn that useful laborers can be dangerous when pushed too far. Outside the window, Earth turned slowly in the darkness. On its surface and in orbit, humanity consolidated its resources, strengthened its defenses, prepared for whatever came next. The galaxy was beginning to realize what it had lost. But the lesson had barely begun. 3 months after the humans left, the Velthar Empire was dying. Velkana stood in her office on the merchant world of Vel Prime, staring at screens that showed her crumbling business empire. 43 cargo ships drifted in various sectors, unable to navigate without the quantum relay network. 12 more sat at spaceports waiting for docking clearance that came too slowly to matter. Her carefully planned trade routes had become chaos. She had tried to hire new engineers. Other species had technical skills. Surely they could restore the relays. But every engineer she contacted gave the same answer after inspecting the relay stations. We can keep basic functions running. But the quantum tuning is beyond us. We do not understand the human calculations. The Velthar had always prided themselves on their strategic thinking, their ability to plan hundreds of moves ahead. But all their planning had assumed the infrastructure would simply exist. They had never bothered to learn how it worked. Why would they? The humans maintained it so reliably. Now Velkana watched her wealth evaporate. Ships she could not move. Cargo she could not deliver. Contracts she could not fulfill. The Velthar economic empire had seemed invincible 3 months ago. Now it was collapsing, like a structure built on sand. She sent a message to Council Prime Velcor, begging for action. The reply she received was brief and unhelpful. The Council is addressing the situation, but the Council was not addressing anything, because the Council itself was falling apart. Nomrel sat in a meeting chamber on the Nomak homeworld, listening to his superiors argue. The crystalline beings chimed and rang at each other, their usual harmony replaced by discordant noise. The bureaucracy that had run so smoothly for centuries was shattering. The western provinces are refusing to cooperate with the mining regulations, one administrator chimed angrily. The eastern enclaves have declared the trade agreements invalid, another added. The northern collective is demanding a complete revision of resource distribution. Nomrel listened to it all with growing despair. These conflicts had existed before, of course. The Nomak were not naturally unified. Different regions had different interests, different beliefs, different goals, but the humans had managed it all. Nomrel pulled up old records, seeing clearly now what he had missed before. Human mediators at every major negotiation. Human translators making sure each faction's concerns were properly understood. Human administrators quietly adjusting policies to keep everyone satisfied enough to cooperate. The Nomak had believed their system worked because of their superior organization. In truth, it had worked because humans held it together behind the scenes. Now those humans were gone, and the old conflicts were exploding into the open. Nomrel tried to mediate between factions himself. He was intelligent, well-trained, experienced. But within hours, he was exhausted and frustrated. How had the humans made it look so easy? How had they kept track of so many competing interests? How had they found solutions that satisfied everyone? He sent a message to the human embassy on Earth. A simple request. Please send help. We will negotiate better terms, better pay, better recognition. The response came 3 days later. No. Just that one word. No explanation. No negotiation. No. On the Kruvan military station Triumph's Edge, General Kruvax faced a different kind of collapse. His warriors were the finest in the galaxy. Strong, brave, skilled in combat. But what good was strength when your ships could not move? The supply convoy he had been expecting for 2 weeks finally arrived today. It should have taken 3 days. The Kruvan fleet was supposed to patrol 27 systems. Now they barely managed 3. Half his ships sat in dock, unable to refuel because the tankers could not navigate efficiently. Worse, the border raiders were noticing. Species that had feared Kruvan military might were growing bold. 3 colonies had been attacked in the past month. Small attacks, testing defenses, but Kruvax could not respond quickly enough. By the time his ships reached an attacked colony, the raiders were long gone. He called a meeting with his officers. 20 veteran warriors gathered in the strategy room. Kruvax looked at them and saw frustration on every face. Report, he ordered. The reports were all bad. Medical supplies running low. Several ships with maintenance issues that could not be fixed without parts stuck at distant spaceports. Training exercises canceled because they could not afford to waste fuel. Moral problems, as warriors sat idle instead of defending Kruvan territory. One officer, Krushan, spoke what they were all thinking. General, we need the humans back. Kruvax slammed his fist on the table. We are Kruvan. We do not need anyone. We are warriors, not merchants dependent on trade routes, but we are warriors who cannot reach the battlefield, Krushan replied quietly. Our strength means nothing if we cannot move our ships, cannot supply our troops, cannot coordinate our forces. The humans did all of this for us, and we never even noticed. Kruvax wanted to argue, but he could not. The officer was right. The Kruvan had focused on fighting, while humans handled everything else. Logistics, supply chains, medical support, tactical coordination, the unglamorous work that made military strength possible. They had treated that work as beneath them, work for lesser species. Now they were paying the price. A priority message arrived. Another colony attacked. Kruvax looked at the star chart, calculating response times. His nearest battle group was 4 days away. The colony would be destroyed by then. He sat down heavily, feeling old for the first time in his long life. Send what help we can. And contact the other generals. We need to discuss our situation. Back on Earth, Taesung met with representatives from various human organizations, engineers, doctors, logistics specialists, scientists, all the people who had quietly made galactic civilization function. How are the conditions in the galaxy? He asked. Hyunwoo answered first. Communication networks are at 30% efficiency. Most species can maintain basic functions, but complex coordination is breaking down. They are trying to repair the relay stations, but without understanding the underlying principles, it is like putting bandages on a broken bone. Ji-won spoke next. Medical facilities are struggling. Complex surgeries are being delayed or canceled. Research programs are halting. The Andromeda Institute sent another message begging us to return. I did not respond. Dongmin reported on logistics. Spaceport efficiency has dropped by 60%. Some stations are handling it better than others, but all are experiencing major delays. Trade is slowing across the galaxy. Several smaller economies are approaching collapse. Tae-sung nodded slowly. And the messages from the council? Clute. Clute. Increasing in frequency and desperation, President Minseo said. They want negotiations. They are offering concessions. Better contracts. Higher pay. More respect, they claim. But not what we asked for, Tae-sung observed. Not equal representation. Not true partnership. They still want to buy our service. Not accept our voice. Defense Minister Jae-hyun leaned forward. How long do we maintain the withdrawal? The galaxy is suffering. Not just the council, but ordinary people who had nothing to do with the insult. I know, Tae-sung said quietly. I think about that every day. But if we return now, nothing changes. They will promise reform, and then forget us again once things are comfortable. The council must understand this completely, must feel it in their bones. Only then will real change be possible. He looked around the room. We are not punishing the galaxy. We are teaching it a lesson it should have learned long ago. That all work has dignity. That all contributors deserve respect. That partnership cannot exist without equality. Outside, the stars shone coldly in the night. Across that darkness, civilizations struggled with problems they had never had to solve before, learning slowly what humanity had always known, that every person matters. Every role is important, and respect must be earned through recognition, not demanded, through necessity. 6 months after the withdrawal, Council Prime Velcor knew he was about to lose everything. He stood in his private chambers on Apex Prime, looking at reports that showed the complete collapse of his authority. Half the council species had stopped attending sessions. They were too busy dealing with their own crises to care about galactic governance. The Velthar economic empire had contracted by 70%. Velkhana and other merchant leaders were demanding his removal from office. They blamed him for the disaster. You insulted the humans, they said. You drove them away with your arrogance. You insulted Nine. You insulted the humans. You insulted the humans. Velcor wanted to argue that the whole council had voted against humanity. That he had simply voiced what everyone believed. But that did not matter now. Someone had to take the blame, and as Council Prime, that someone was him. A message arrived from the Nomak homeworld. Their unity government had collapsed completely. The species was now divided into 7 separate factions, each refusing to cooperate with the others. Civil war seemed likely. Another message from Kruven territory. They had lost 6 colonies to raiders in the past month. The mighty Kruven military was paralyzed, unable to defend its own borders. Velcor had sent dozens of messages to Earth. Polite requests at first. Then, formal diplomatic appeals. Then, desperate pleas. None of them received responses. The humans had simply gone silent. He called an emergency council session. Only 15 species bothered to attend. The great chamber felt empty and cold. We must address the human situation, Velcor began. His voice sounded weak even to himself. A Nomak representative, Namsha, chimed harshly. Address it how? We have begged them to return. They ignore us. We have offered them better terms. They do not respond. What else can we do? We could send a delegation to Earth, someone suggested. We have sent 3 delegations, another voice replied. They were turned away at the orbital defense grid. The humans will not even let us land on their world. Velcor felt control slipping away from him. For thousands of years, the Council had been the supreme authority in the galaxy. Now it could not even get one species to answer its messages. We must make them understand we need them, Velcor said. We must make them see reason. The chamber erupted in angry sounds. Chimes. Clicks. roars. The translator struggled to keep up with the chaos. Make them understand? Make them see reason? They understand perfectly. They see quite clearly. It is we who were blind. Velcor could not identify who spoke those words. It did not matter. They were true. Light years away, a Nomak shuttle approached Earth's orbital defense perimeter. Inside, Ambassador Nomsha carried a formal petition signed by what remained of the Council. It offered humanity full Council membership, equal representation. Everything they had asked for. Commander Sun Hee met the shuttle at the perimeter in her defense cruiser. She opened a communication channel. Ambassador Namsha, you are not cleared to approach Earth. Please turn back. The Nomak's crystalline form appeared on the screen. Commander, I have an official message from the Galactic Council. We must deliver it. You may transmit the message from your current position, Sun Hee replied. You will not be allowed to proceed further. This is unreasonable. We are offering you what you wanted. Full membership. Equal status. Sun Hee's expression did not change. 6 months ago, Ambassador Taesung requested dialogue as equals. The Council laughed at him. You called us useful laborers. Now your civilization is collapsing, and suddenly you offer us respect. This is not respect. Ambassador, this is desperation. Does the reason matter if the outcome is what you wanted? Yes, Sun Hee said firmly. It matters very much. We do not want membership given out of fear or necessity. We want it given out of genuine recognition of our value. The Council must understand what it did wrong. Not just know it intellectually, but feel it. Completely. How much more must we suffer before you are satisfied? That is up to you, Sun Hee replied. When you are ready for real change, not just quick solutions to your current problems, then we can talk. Until then, Ambassador Taesung has nothing further to discuss with the Council. She closed the channel. The Nomak shuttle hung in space for a moment, then slowly turned back toward the relay point. Inside the shuttle, Namsha felt something she had never experienced before. Complete helplessness. The Nomak were bureaucrats. Administrators. They solved problems through systems and procedures. But what system could fix this? What procedure could restore trust that had been shattered? She drafted a report to send back to the Council. The humans will not negotiate. They are not interested in our offers. I recommend we prepare for long-term collapse of galactic infrastructure. Thanks. 2 weeks later, the Kruvan tried a different approach. Admiral Crudan led a battle fleet toward Earth. Not a large fleet. Just 12 warships. Enough to make a show of force. The plan was simple. Demonstrate Kruvan military power. Make the humans understand they could not simply ignore galactic authority. It was a terrible plan. But desperation made people stupid. The Kruvan fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. Immediately, alarms started sounding. Crudan looked at his sensors and his blood went cold. Earth's orbital defense network was nothing like the intelligence reports described. The old reports showed a modest, defensive system, adequate for protecting one world, but nothing impressive by galactic standards. What Crudan saw now was something else entirely. Hundreds of defensive platforms. Dozens of cruisers. Weapon systems he did not recognize. Energy signatures. His sensors could barely analyze. The humans had been building this in secret. While they worked peacefully across the galaxy, they had been preparing for the possibility that peace would end. A communication channel opened. A human officer appeared on screen. She looked young, but her eyes were hard. Kruvan vessels, this is Defense Commander Jae-hyun. You have entered human territory without authorization. State your intentions. Crudan tried to project confidence. We are here to escort a diplomatic delegation to Earth. We mean no harm. You brought 12 warships as escort for a diplomatic delegation? Jae-hyun's voice dripped with sarcasm. Admiral, we are not fools. You came here to intimidate us. to make a show of force. This was a mistake. We simply wish to open dialogue. Then you should have sent diplomats, not warships. Jae-hyun gestured off-screen. You now have two choices. Turn around and leave immediately, or be disabled and escorted out of our territory. Choose quickly. Crudan looked at his tactical display. His 12 warships against hundreds of defensive platforms. The Crewven were warriors, but they were not suicidal. We will withdraw, he said, tasting shame. Wise choice, Jae-hyun replied. And Admiral? Deliver a message to your superiors. The next fleet that approaches Earth without permission will not receive a warning. They will simply be stopped. The channel closed. The Crewven fleet began a slow, humiliating retreat. Behind them, the human defenses tracked their every movement until they jumped back to faster-than-light travel. Crudan sent his report back to General Kruvax. The humans are not defenseless. They are not weak. They chose peace, but they are prepared for war. We cannot force them to do anything. Back on Apex Prime, the Council received both reports: Namsha's failed diplomatic mission, Crudan's humiliating military withdrawal. The two approaches they had tried, negotiation and intimidation, had both failed completely. Velcor sat alone in the empty council chamber. Around him, the galaxy was fragmenting. Species that had cooperated for centuries were becoming isolated and suspicious. Trade networks were collapsing. Communication was sporadic. Medical care was declining. Military defense was weakening. And it was all because they had laughed at one human ambassador. Because they had called humanity useful laborers instead of partners. A message appeared on his personal terminal. It was from the Velthar Council of Merchants, short and brutal. Council Prime, Velcor. You are removed from office effective immediately. A new Council Prime will be appointed. He stared at the message for a long time. Then he began to laugh. Not from humor, but from the absurdity of it all. They were removing him from an office that no longer meant anything. The Council had no power anymore. No authority. No purpose. The galaxy had spent thousands of years building a civilization. The Council had been its foundation. And they had destroyed it all in one vote. One dismissive laugh. One moment of arrogance. Somewhere on Earth, Taesung probably knew about Velcor's removal. But Taesung would not care. The humans were not interested in petty revenge. They were teaching a much larger lesson. That respect cannot be demanded. That partnership cannot be forced. And that those who seem unimportant often hold everything together. 1 year after the withdrawal, Taesung finally agreed to meet with what remained of the Council leadership. Not on Apex Prime. That station had been abandoned 3 months ago when the power systems failed. Without human engineers to maintain them, the complex systems had broken down. The great symbol of galactic unity now drifted dark and empty in space. Instead, they met at Haven Station, a new facility humanity had built in neutral territory. The station was smaller than Apex Prime but functional. Clean. Efficient. Everything worked because humans had designed it to be maintainable, not just impressive. Taesung stood in the meeting room, watching ships arrive. Each carried representatives from species that had once looked down on humanity. Now they came as suppliants, hoping for mercy. Velcor arrived first. The former Council Prime looked diminished. His chitinous shell had lost its shine. His movements were slow and careful. Defeat had broken something in him. Behind him came Nomsha, representing what little remained of Nomak unity. Then Kruvax, the Crewven general who had lost half his territory to raiders. Then others. 15 species in total, all that remained of the 47 that had once formed the council. They gathered in the meeting room. No grand chamber this time. Just a simple space with a round table. No elevated platforms. No special seating. Everyone, at the same level. Taesung sat down. The others followed his lead. For a moment, no one spoke. Then, Velcor broke the silence. Ambassador Tae Sung, we come to ask for help, to beg for it, if necessary. Our civilizations are dying. We need humanity to return. Please name your price. Tae Sung looked at him calmly. There is no price. This is not a negotiation about money or resources. Then what do you want? I want you to understand what you did wrong. Not just know it, but truly understand it. Namsha chimed softly. We understand. We treated humanity with disrespect. We dismissed your contributions. We took your work for granted. Yes, Tae Sung agreed. But do you understand why that was wrong? The question hung in the air. Finally, Kruvax spoke. Because you are our equals. Because your work had value. Because we needed you. No, Tae Sung said firmly. You still do not understand. We are not your equals because you need us. We are your equals because we are people. Because every being deserves respect regardless of their utility. You respected us only when we became useful. That is not respect. That is just recognizing a tool. He stood up and walked to the window. Outside, stars shone in the darkness. Humanity worked across the galaxy because we believed in cooperation. In building something together. We were proud of our contributions. But you never saw us as partners. You saw us as servants. Useful, yes. Valuable perhaps, but not equal. Velcor's mandibles clicked in distress. How do we fix this? What must we do? Tae Sung turned back to them. You must rebuild. Not just your infrastructure, but your entire way of thinking. The Galactic Council must end. It was built on hierarchy and assumed superiority. That system created this disaster. He pulled out a document and placed it on the table. This is a proposal for a new organization. The Confederated Assembly. Every species has equal representation. Every voice has equal weight. Decisions are made through consensus, not through votes where the majority dominates the minority. Namsha examined the document. This would be inefficient. Consensus takes time. The old council could make decisions quickly. The old council made quick decisions that led to disaster. Tae Sung replied. Better to make slow decisions that everyone accepts than fast decisions that half the galaxy resents. He sat back down. This is not negotiable. If you want humanity to help rebuild galactic civilization, it will be a different civilization, one based on actual equality, not pretty words that hide continued hierarchy. The representatives looked at each other. Finally, Kruvax spoke. And if we accept these terms, you will restore the systems? Return to work across the galaxy? We will help, Tae Sung corrected. But not alone. Every species must learn to maintain their own infrastructure. We will teach you, work alongside you, but we will not simply return to doing everything for you. That created dependence. And dependence breeds resentment. Over the next 3 hours, they discussed the details. Tae Sung was patient, but firm. Every time someone suggested a compromise that would preserve old power structures, he refused. This had to be complete change, not cosmetic reform. Finally, they had a framework everyone could accept. The Confederated Assembly would replace the Galactic Council. Humans would help restore infrastructure, but other species would train alongside them, learning to maintain systems themselves. We will present this to our governments, Velcor said. But I believe they will accept. We have no choice. Oh, you always had a choice. Tae Sung replied quietly. You could have chosen equality a year ago, or 30 years ago. When humanity first joined galactic civilization, you chose arrogance instead. Now you choose equality out of necessity. That is not ideal, but it is a beginning. 1. The meeting ended. The representatives returned to their ships. Tae Sung watched them go, feeling tired, but satisfied. President Minseo joined him at the window. Do you think they really understand? Or are they just saying what we want to hear? Some understand. Others are just desperate. But it does not matter. The new system will force them to behave better, even if their hearts have not changed. And perhaps, over time, behavior will shape belief. 3 months later, the Confederated Assembly held its first session. The old chamber on Apex Prime was abandoned. Instead, they met on Haven Station. 47 species attended, including humanity. Tae-sung was elected as the first assembly coordinator. Not because humanity demanded it, but because the other species genuinely wanted him in that role. He accepted reluctantly, knowing it would be difficult work. The reconstruction began slowly. Hyun-woo and his team returned to the relay stations, but this time, they brought engineers from other species with them, teaching as they worked. Why does the quantum tuning use this specific frequency? A young Velthar engineer asked. Hyun-woo smiled. Good question. Let me show you the mathematics behind it. Ranger. 3-3. Ranger. 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 He spent 2 hours explaining principles that he had previously just applied without sharing. The Velthar engineer listened carefully, asked intelligent questions, began to truly understand. At Andromeda Medical Institute, Dr. Ji-won reopened the surgery ward, but now she taught her techniques to doctors from every species. She had been doing procedures alone for years. Now she led teams, explaining every decision, making sure others could learn. A Nomak doctor named Namkesh assisted in a complex neural surgery. I see now why you make that incision at that angle. It provides better access while reducing trauma. Exactly, Ji-won said. You are learning quickly. In a few months, you will be able to perform these surgeries yourself. At Nexus Station, Captain Dong-min worked alongside the Kruven logistics staff, teaching them the systems, showing them how to optimize routes and manage complex schedules. It is harder than it looks, Kruven admitted. The station commander who had once forbidden Dong-min from leaving now worked beside him as a student. Everything is harder than it looks, Dong-min replied. That is why respect for all work is important. What seems simple from outside is complex from inside. Across the galaxy, humans and aliens work together. Not as masters and servants, not even as teachers and students, but as partners, rebuilding something better than what had been lost. A year after the first assembly session, Tae-sung stood in the same meeting room where the new order had been born. President Minseo had come to visit, taking a break from her duties on Earth. Was it worth it? She asked. The same question she had asked before. All the suffering during the withdrawal. All the lives disrupted. All the pain. Was it worth it? Tae-sung looked out at the stars. I think about that question every day. Thousands died because medical systems failed during the withdrawal. Millions suffered hardship. The galaxy went through a year of chaos and fear. He paused. But if we had not walked away, nothing would have changed. We would still be useful laborers. Our children would have grown up knowing that hard work means nothing without the right bloodline or species. That is a lesson I could not accept teaching them. So yes, he continued. It was worth it. Not because the outcome justified the suffering, but because some lessons can only be learned through experience. The galaxy had to lose us to understand our value, had to struggle without us to respect our contributions, had to face collapse to choose equality. Outside the window, a human ship worked alongside a Velthar vessel, repairing a relay station together. Inside, engineers from both species shared knowledge, solved problems as partners. It was not perfect. Old prejudices still existed. Old hierarchies still influenced some thinking. But it was better. Genuinely better. And humanity had proven something important. That quiet dignity could be more powerful than loud demands. That walking away could teach lessons. Violence never could. That true strength lay not in dominating others but in building things that improved everyone's lives. The galaxy had learned. And in learning, it had become something worth being part of again. Taesung smiled slightly. They needed to understand that we are not their servants. We are their equals. Sometimes, the hardest lessons require silence instead of words. Minseo nodded. And now? Now we build together. A galaxy where every voice matters. Where every contribution is valued. Where respect is given freely, not extracted through desperation. That was always worth fighting for. The stars shone on. And beneath them, humanity and its partners built something new. Something better. Something worth the cost.